FaceTime.
Welcome to FaceTime.
Welcome to FaceTime. Welcome to FaceTime. FaceTime.
Hey everyone, welcome back. FaceTime number 5. We growing. I'll have another guest here. A pretty awesome producer, and I'm happy to call him a friend too. I know him for such a long time. And it's Nick from Noisia. And we will talk a little about things. It's going down. This is going to be more of an extended version of the podcast. But of course, we will get back to some pattern questions. At the end, I thought I'll highlight a track Nick and I worked on in the past. It's a little older, and it never got a release. And I always liked it. It's pretty minimal, rolling. So yeah, this is gonna be played at the end of the show. And yeah, I hope you like this one. Should be quite some insights in here. That's about it. So long, and have fun. All right. Hello, Nick.
Click. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How's your day so far, my friend?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's been good. I did a bunch of different things. So that's always good. Yep.
First, thank you very much for taking the time to be on this little FaceTime show I'm doing.
No problem.
We chatted about it on
WhatsApp.
You came with some actually nice suggestions about what we could do on the show, and I put in some thought. I always liked it about you. When you have something, you think about it in depth, and yeah, you take things serious. That's one of your, like, you're a funny guy, don't get me wrong, but you take things serious, which is a very good character you have, and that's something I very much like. And I thought about how I can play this episode, and I did some digging. So we did our first collaborations, when I'm correct, around 2004 in the form of Outsource and Surface Tension, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember the trip. I remember the car you were driving back then too. It was a Peugeot, right? The blue one?
The Peugeot, the small Peugeot party car, yeah. And that was in Cologne. And in total, I think since that point, we did something like 15 to 20 collaborations around that. Some were not released, actually. But I was like, okay, that's quite a fair amount of music we worked on in the past.
Absolutely.
And it would go beyond the scope of our conversation to go through all those collaborations, of course. So I thought about looking back, if you backed up some of your memories, what is that one memory that you always have in mind if you think of when we worked on music? Like, is there something, one specific track, one specific session moment?
There's a couple of ones that I remember the room that we wrote Outsource and Surface Tension in. I remember that setup. But one thing, and also maybe one of my favorite collaborations was a Program. And didn't we do Program and Microorganism? Or no, we did Stagger and Microorganism. Or
No, Program and Microorganism, I think that those two were, because we always had this phase where we did 2 tracks in
a weekend.
3 days.
Yeah, just go in fully, like non-stop. And I remember the Microorganism was the second day, and I think I was sick, right? I had a flu or something. Yeah. So I remember being on the couch and sort of, I'm not sure if I was, surely I must have been at the controls for some of it, but I remember that couch, that session in Groningen, that was in Groningen, and I remember that I remember the bass from Program, this talking sound, being really excited about how it was suddenly a talking bass that said Program, and this whole world of a story opened up to us that I also tried to put into the artwork. But I remember that was done with PSP N2O, filtering something.
Oh, wow.
but yeah, that's rare because I usually
Yep.
don't remember how I make sounds.
Yep, that's true. I remember that too. Actually, it feels like I've done it yesterday. Like we sit in that room yesterday. Now that I think back, it felt very authentic and natural that moment.
Yeah.
And I like the fact with microorganism. I remember you were actually feeling really bad, and you didn't feel like working, and you didn't feel like being in the studio. But I kind of pushed you to. I was like, no, I'm gonna finish this. I gotta leave tomorrow. And but I think it was worth it in the end, you know. And
Yeah.
I think both tracks kind of worked out. I think the best from all of our collabs when I look back at all of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and I think what is always like one of my favorites is another favorite is Homeworld, and I think we wrote
Homeworld,
that in Oosterkade in Groningen.
Oosterkade, yeah, on a sitting on a beer box,
Yeah,
sitting on 2 beer boxes of Grolsch
Yeah.
in front of an old PC.
yeah. I mean, it is like when we started. It's funny because the hardware and software was so different back then, and we really came from when it was just becoming to be a digital process. The in the box music making, that hardware was slowly moving out, and like we've been through all of it now, back to analog synths again, and you know, everything in between. We have a pretty crazy track record now that I think about it. Also all the nights of partying and going to you know, bowling, eating in stupid places, and smoking tons of weed, and you know.
Yeah, man, we are old. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, things changed, obviously. A lot of things changed. I think 2020 is the year of change, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the whole Noisia thing, because you guys actually wanted to quit the project this year, and with all the lockdown and pandemic breakout, as far as I understood, you guys are now considering or trying to do that next year and have a proper finish to the project.
Yep.
Is that your plan in detail, like, or do you like still have that on hold because nobody knows what the future is going to bring? Actually,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's more or less that we decided we wanted to do a farewell tour, and we started rolling it out, planning it, and then as it was barely getting started, the pandemic hit. So we are just basically trying to reschedule everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, whether that's going to be next year or another moment. I mean, it's just like people are going to probably keep rescheduling until they can't reschedule anymore, or you know, like
it's a tiring game.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to go, and I think we will adapt to the circumstances. But that's what we wanted. We want to make a fitting end to Noisia.
Cool.
At least through a farewell tour for just going to certain places one last time. And I think that'll be good for us personally as well, to get some sort of closure as well, because it feels really strange to this sort of this series of events is quite strange for if you have your Noisia hat on. You know?
Yeah, no, I fully can understand, and I'm very sure you're gonna find your way to finish it properly, to like put a nail into the coffin, which sounds very dark. But I mean, quitting something actually means also there's a lot of new time and place for you to develop yourself new. And I've been always following your music and what you do, and you did launch a new 4x4.
Yep.
More, I don't know, it's bass house in a way, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't want to put a name on it.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at as well. We there's so many different sounds that we think are interesting that we don't want to peg ourselves down too quickly to one subgenre. And funnily enough, I'm not sure if this is a weird thing to say, but I got the feeling that some of the bass house stuff, some bass house stuff is like a corner that has a bit of a stigma around it or something. If you're bass house, then maybe you're not legitimate house or something. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, because I know I'm not saying that we are currently being stigmatized. Not at all. Like, we're just starting out. It doesn't fucking matter. But I sort of got that feeling a little bit, and I find that quite interesting, because if you some of the bass house stuff is really high energy, and I figured coming from drum and bass, you know, a lot of the big room stuff is really high energy. So I thought that would be the bigger genre. But funnily enough, it's not necessarily. It's more of an underground thing. if I get it correctly.
Absolutely. I see it as well. Like, I mean, living in Germany, where techno is always has the biggest head, and it's like where the whole industry says, okay, this is music with value. And all the other electronic genres you have below, they are kind of like really underground and like bass house, deep house, all those branches of the different sound. They kind of always been looked at, okay, this is a bit crazy. It is a bit like what drum and bass always has been, you know, there's a bit more street level, a bit high energetic, electronic punk rock. And I can see why it kind of makes sense, and I can see why you have fun working on such stuff. And I've been listening to the tracks, and I really enjoyed it. I like the fact you didn't really, I was like, okay, are they as square, even though you don't square per se, but are they as loud as your drum and bass stuff? I'm like, no, cool, nice one. They're not. They adapt. They're dynamic. They have a cool minimal vibe. Yeah. Even though they still have this feeling of a songwriting for drum and bass. You know, there happens a lot. Even though they're more stretched out over time, but still there's a lot of sounds and there's happening a lot, which is not typical if you look at techno. You can have a cup of coffee in between six-minute breakdown and stuff. So it's cool. I like it. And it's called Body Ocean. With
Body
Jeremy
Ocean.
from the Upbeats. Yeah. And August was the first release, and now you have a full EP out. Yeah,
true.
I'm following. Nice one.
Nice.
And something I'm also very interested about is the Nick solo project. How does Nick sound when Nick just does his own stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, currently, basically, what I have 3 jobs right now, so to speak. I have 3 things that I do. One is obviously still some Noisia stuff with Noisia Radio and our labels. I have recently become a creative director of Vision. So I do head up the A&R and the art direction, and obviously the direction of the label. So that's takes up some time, and the new Mission Various Artists LP was a product of this, like doing a whole new A&R process and setting up a new direction. So we did a massive VA, and there's a bunch more projects in the works that I'm really excited about. That's one part of my job. Then the tutorials that I do, that Thijs and Martijn also do, that's also part of sort of legacy Noisia stuff. And then I have the Body Ocean thing, which obviously is with Jeremy, which means we have to talk to each other really early in the morning and late at night and try to figure out sessions and stuff. And we've been working in Bitwig a lot, which is interesting.
Nice one.
And the third thing is my solo thing, and I can't divulge that much about it yet, but I have been working on this EP for a long time. You know how I am with tracks, and being by myself, there's nobody that just tells me, Nick, it's fucking done. But
welcome to my world.
So I guess in terms of the sound that I'm going for, this first EP is quite personal, but it is, to me, I try to put the same kind of energy into it that I put into Noisia. So the sound, there will be similarities to the sound, but I'm not going to try to make Noisia music by myself. I want
makes sense.
I want to be able to make it a little more personal. I also, I don't know if it's going to be DJ'd or not by anybody. I don't know.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the music is mostly just meant to tell a story and to be more of a journal. So I'm curious what people think. I'm pretty excited about a lot of the tracks. So yeah, I just need to finish them.
To me, sounds like you have a vision, you have a plan of what you want to do, and very confident this is going to turn out great too. And I can't wait to hear the music too.
Well, the thing is, because I also I designed the logo myself. I have all the artwork thought out. You know, I'm almost fucking knitting the merchandise myself. I literally, everything, and that makes it takes so much time. And being a dad, having a little child, your time is a little bit different.
That's the point I wanted to get to right now, because you joined the Club of Fatherhood, I think, in April, right? Yeah. And things get better, but it is a challenge. And looking at that, because I know how it feels now
To have a baby in the first year.
And I was wondering, because I know you always took your time to go very deep down in a rabbit hole when you have a certain topic that is inspiring to you. And do you still find that time with all the stuff you have been doing, like you have to do in terms of your job and in terms of your different projects? Do you still find that time now where you can just fully let loose and dig and be Nick, like pre-baby Nick?
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, I have. It comes with sacrifices. Definitely, because one person once told me that like this kind of a silly comparison, but it makes some sense. I think like your life is like a furnace, a gas furnace with 4 hubs, I think they're called, or nubs or whatever, where you put the pans. So you've got 4 of them, but you can't burn all 4. You can only burn 3 or 2, and one of them is friends, one of them is your health, one of them is work. And one of them is family. And, which one are you going to sacrifice? And for me, what I've noticed, I've just been less social. I've just I make friendships with the people I work with because I work with them. And then through working, you get a relationship. And I love that. That's how I love getting to know people, through working with them and spending time.
Yeah.
But if I don't work with people that much, then I have to make an effort to and that is something that I think I have sacrificed a little bit in this time, because it feels really weird to just dive into a subject, go into my studio while I know my daughter is at daycare or my girlfriend is taking care of her, and I know this time counts, so to speak, and then just tweak around with some silly idea I have about how to make a hi-hat for the whole day. I mean, I still do it because I'm just stubborn. I'm just a stubborn guy, but I do have a little bit of cognitive dissonance, and part of me saying, "What are you doing?" But I welcome that, because I want to change a little bit. I don't want to stay the same person throughout this whole process of Noisia stopping, throughout having a child. I want to change.
You have to, otherwise it's the same soup. And I think it's our nature to change, especially when you become a dad and certain things change. Your whole life, like at least for me, my whole life changed with the lockdown coming on top. And I think actually having your first baby within lockdown or a pandemic, it's kind of actually very nice. Even though I mean, the circumstances are bad for the whole society and world, but for the baby, like it's so much more time with the baby now as I would have had when I would be on tour or like full on sucked up in jobs, and like it would have went on like it was before. So I think actually it's a very nice time to have a baby. And also it really gives you a beacon of positivity and distraction from, because if you get caught up in reading the news all day and being completely powerless to do anything about it, especially when you have a baby, you can't really, or if your girlfriend's pregnant, you can't, like, you could volunteer to do some jobs to help out in care or something, but if you expose yourself, it's a very bad idea, especially if your girlfriend's pregnant, absolutely.
So it's isolating in an extra kind of way, but you have a child who has no idea about any of that and is just like, will take all your love regardless, and
unconditional love. Cool. So that was pretty much our starting conversation, I think. And I explained you the rest of the show, where I just randomly picked some questions by my patrons. And if you are cool with it, we get started on these.
Yeah, let's roll.
All right. First question is by Marcus.
Wat is your favorite beer and why?
The thing is, I am not a beer nerd, or I'm not very precious about beer, because I don't drink beer that often. And when I drink beer, the act of drinking beer, for example, when it's late afternoon in the summer and it's really warm and you have a cold beer outside somewhere with your friends, that beer is going to be so good. The brand doesn't matter that much. If you drink a lot of beer, I guess you're more. But I'm like that with coffee as well. It's about the fact that sometimes having a cup of coffee is just really great than what coffee it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I like Beck's, and I know we drank Beck's together quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like Hertog Jan, which is a Dutch beer.
I know that one. Noisia fridge is always full with that when I'm at the studio.
Exactly, that's the beer that we get here. I think Grolsch is pretty nice as well. I am not a fan of IPAs. I don't drink IPAs. I think they're
okay. Wow.
I don't like. Rarely I'll find one that I actually enjoy, but it feels like somebody put some sort of weird soap in your mouth. I'm more about like light blonde beers and Japanese beers when you have them in Japan from the tap, like.
Yeah.
Any fucking one, because it's like filtered, all the water's super filtered and it's just so gentle. Like that's the best beer I've ever had. But I don't drink that here because it's not here.
Lately, I've been really enjoying alcoholic-free beers mainly because, I mean, once in a while in the summer I had a couple of normal beers, let's say, of course, but I always try different beers. I don't want to just stick to a certain type all the time. I'm not a beer fanatic in a way, but right now I'm on this. I try all the different non-alcoholic IPAs at the moment. That's my task.
And did you get into Aperol Spritz at all?
I had a phase of it for summer in Italy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of old man drink or old lady. I don't know, but I do really enjoy it. Like it's definitely a thing here around the office when it's hot and we're on the balcony and somebody has an Aperol Spritz. Everybody's like, "Fuck, I wish I had one."
It is a refreshing and a beautiful drink, so I can understand. So, favorite beer, Aperol Spritz. Next question is by myself.
In your point of view, can COVID-19 be seen as a reset button or a renewed opportunity for the music industry?
Well, I do think that, yes, I think involuntarily it will be some sort of reset. And in the sense that not everybody will be able to continue the way they did before COVID. Like there will be parties that will be able to continue because they had maybe the financial buffers to just hold out until they can do exactly what they did before.
Yeah.
But the practicality of how shows take shape will determine a lot about what the music will do and what the artists will do. And potentially there is more of a grassroots movement possible. If travel is difficult, then locals are way more important. And it would be great to see if scenes have more emphasis on local sounds, local nights, local acts that are just upholding a certain... those are the people always doing it with their heart because they're not the ones making most of the money usually. So these people are going to be essential and might have more of a pivotal role in the building of the next version of music scenes, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess with limited capacity, there's a couple of things that could happen if there's not a lot of room for people to rave and people trying different things. But I think for dance music, we will have to get to a point where you can touch each other's body, you know, because
otherwise it would be really sad.
Yeah, then if that never comes back again, then all this dance music is definitely going to be quite different because there will be. I mean, I definitely have been talking to Jeremy a lot because in New Zealand there's no lockdown at the moment and there are parties, so. I was asking him, like, is the music different? Does the music feel different to people when they're raving? Like, are the tracks getting different responses?
Yeah.
And not really. But I guess they haven't had as long a hiatus as we have had. Yeah. But I do think, like, if you imagine something like Rampage or what's the one in Holland that is really hardcore? Anyway, Rampage. If you have that lineup right now and you go there after a year of not raving, then you might feel really bombarded after the first fucking 5 minutes, you know?
I personally think it is a great reboot opportunity in terms of how does the musical underground define their new world in terms of and it is I like the fact things get more lo-fi these days, not like being disrespectful, but it is not about the polished all perfect marketing product anymore. It is really more about the idea and about let's put it that way, art or like being authentic. And I really like that whole feeling I get. And I mean, it's a chance. That's how I see it. It's a chance.
Yeah, it would be nice if it means that the music can sort of go back a couple of notches on the sort of hysteria scale, because it always, these genres always get more violent and violent sonically because of, DJs one-upping each other and loudness wars and all this stuff. It'd be cool to take that back a couple of notches, but chances are that's
not only working until the pandemic is done.
Yeah, or it'll pick up again pretty quickly. I don't know.
Yeah. Next question by Primal.
I always make a plan for a production session. I want to do X, design Y. I often get sidetracked and end up working on Z for some reason. It feels like my attention wavers. Have you ever found this, and have you found yourself to get more disciplined over time?
You had no problem with that. No, I'm sorry.
No, I am 100%. I get distracted a fair amount. But I also am a firm believer in that you have to make the process a very important part of your being as a creator, and you can't just think that you start from A, you set out to go to B because you have a plan, you want to write a certain track, and you just go in a straight line from A to B, and that's being creative, that's creating. I think in the act of creating, there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of new impulses, there's a lot of discovery, and that also means that you find yourself gravitating towards these new points of discovery. Hey, what does that mean? And to me, like, I can literally put an EQ on a sound and my brain might go, oh, hang on a second. This opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Yeah. And then sometimes, I can discipline myself and say, no, that's not important for this track right now. But I will very often give it the benefit of the doubt, because these steps, this journey, the more forks you have at this road where you make a decision, the more your sound is going to evolve into something very personal and specific. If you're very deliberate and planned about what you make, then you're just going to sound like something that's already out there. Because
a plastic product.
And also, there's no surprises, so there's no improvisation. And I feel like, for me, that's very important. If I can spare the time, I will definitely do that. I mean, I just finished a song that I've been working on with Former for really long, maybe 2 years or something. And we were at the 16th version of the 50th version, or 53rd version. So, and we literally tried everything, and I would just go back in and try another angle. And now we're finally at somewhere where I think it's good. And I think that's I think that's a great luxury. If you can afford it, that is the greatest luxury to explore as much as you want. So yeah, I'm a bad person to talk to about that stuff.
I am pretty much the same. For me, the way is always the goal.
Yeah.
I always end up at A when I want to go to Z, or X or Y, or maybe I'll just even go to in the middle somewhere and go to F. Like, I'm totally random sometimes, and I need those kind of moments, because that's what keeps up my excitement when I work on stuff, to find out new stuff. It's good to know certain things and to have a plan, but I love to be sidetracked. So that's,
and I think
I can share that feeling.
I think you can have, like, it does work to sort of compartmentalize the moments a little bit, saying like, all right, now I'm freely creating, I'm just going to let go, and then I'm going to bounce it and leave it in my drive, listen to it. When I listen to it next, I'm not going to have that attitude. I'm going to be very emotionally detached and try to figure out what the best thing is. Judge it. So separating those moments is good, because if you judge all the time, you're going to stop your creativity at every corner.
Perfect. Next question by Christian Hostert. That's going to be more into the depths of music production technology.
Yeah.
Technology. Say you had 10 points to spend on compression, be it in form of compressors, limiters or saturation. How many points would you spend on channel compression, group compression and master compression? Is it uneven splitting? Does group, master compression or clipping get the job done easier for some things than meticulously compressing each channel?
It's a very difficult question.
Yeah, I mean, I get what he's getting at, but the points thing is a little confusing, and the fact that he mentions saturation and stuff first, and then talks about spending points on only on compression.
Yeah.
But I can say some things about it. I definitely think that you can get most things done. It's best to get most things done on the channels themselves, and sometimes on groups. You can get things to gel together by working on them individually, but you can't get some individual effect on something if you process them together. You know what I mean? So you can't put a plugin on your master that's going to make one of your elements suddenly sound A or B, but you can make all your elements sound good together by working on them individually. And I think also with clipping and distortion, I think it's quite important to know to do that, to localize it a little bit, and it makes your master bus a lot easier to work with if you have your levels under control.
These days, I also try to do most on the channels and to do as less as possible on the master.
The less you have to do on your master bus, the better, so to speak.
Yeah. Next question by Mick V.
Do you stick to a certain keyer scale for writing tracks?
Well, that's only for bass, sub bass. Like there's just the sub bass is because they're relatively quite far apart. You know, like you can have over one octave. You almost have the entire sub bass region, so to speak. So how the bass feels can really vary from one key to the next. Like even from like. Two semitones can make a huge difference. So that is something that I use. If I want a very physical low bass, then I'll go to whatever D or D sharp, and it's also very much the genre you're working in, like drum and bass. When we started out, remember, Florian, we used to be in G. Like most of the time, G sharp. We used to always write in G, and then we went down to F, F sharp, F.
And now it's down to D or C.
yeah. Now it's just like way lower, and so it's also a paradigm kind of thing, like what's going on around you and who's writing the music how. And I guess you can also say sometimes you can sort of do it for mixing reasons, because if you have really low sub, it really changes the way you can mix. So you can have a much more pokier kick, for example, that sits a little bit higher. And if you want to give that kick attention with its own bass, then it might work to have a very low sub because they're not fighting each other, blah, blah. You can sort of, but I don't think I would make decisions in that order. It would be in the reverse order.
I remember when I started to write music, I never ever thought about it anyways. I was literally just doing what felt right to me. But of course, I mean, now I look at keys and scales for music I might want to introduce. I'm not a trained musician. Like, I don't know scales inside out. Like, I have my papers to look at and certain methods how I can know where I'm at. But I sometimes just like things to be also a little wrong, because I don't know, it gives to me like this feeling of satisfaction that it's not a perfect thing, there's something that is wow.
I definitely agree. I've been doing a little bit of like trying to find out a little bit more about scales and kind of know where I'm at with certain things. I'm still very limited in it, but I do like to try and make a point of improving that from time to time and trying to see if I can write melodic devices and write chord progressions that somehow make sense or deliberately don't make sense or not even deliberately don't make sense. Because I 100% agree that if you follow all the rules, if you do it all properly, it's super fucking boring and then nothing new will happen. So a lot of exciting music and different new changes in music and genres came from people not really knowing what they are doing and just doing the next best thing that felt right. So
absolutely,
I do like in terms of scales. I can say that I used to work in minor scales almost exclusively, and recently I have been using more major scales. Well, because major scales aren't all that happy. It totally depends on how you work with them, because a minor scale is also a major scale if you shift the emphasis a little bit to a different note. And vice versa.
Nice one. Next question by Juno.
I'm seeing that some bigger artists use send channels for both sound design and mixdowns, such as parallel compression, reverbs, FX bass, wider stereo, etc. Is this method useful to you too, and if so, how do you prefer to make use of it?
Yeah, I guess a send. Sometimes you use a send, but I mean, you could also duplicate the channel and have everything wet running just on the channel, and then you can also pre EQ it a little bit more. I mean, I think send effects are essentially a pretty old concept, to be honest. It feels to me
I
like
feel about it too.
Yeah, it's like old hardware, with the send and return and all this shit. I don't think you necessarily need to look at it that way. It doesn't make anything better if it's a send or something. It's just you can. Yeah. I mean, I will try to separate sort of the channels that have elements to them that I need to control separately. So if there's a sound and I want to add a stereo layer, for example, I'll probably duplicate it or create a send and then work on that send separately. Yeah, that definitely works. But it depends also on your software. For example, in Cubase, you can set up a send pretty easily, but you also have to be aware of the fact that with some effects you might get some phasing if it's just mixed back with the original. So sometimes working on that separately is not the best idea either. But yeah, parallel compression as well can be handy. You can send stuff to a group. It's all possible. And if people are doing it, they're probably doing it because they want to.
Of course, I mean, the old school send thing does work for certain people. For me, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Well, I guess for us, because we are also we don't emphasize a lot delays and reverbs and stuff like that. It's not a really big part of our sound. But of course, if you're working in a certain vibe and you have a nice effects bus with a cool reverb and a delay and maybe some compression, you can obviously, if you send all your elements there a little bit, you can get this really cohesive vibe, of course.
If you work on modular or if you work on synth and acoustic music, definitely it's going to have its place. And if you have a big mixing board and you have it set up and you found out that's a setup that works on this instrument, you're going to keep it that way. It makes sense for, like you said, for the task you're gonna have or for the vibe. But for the way I work, I really like. I looked at my projects, and when I read the question, I'm like, okay, wow, I didn't use the send effect in like, I don't know, in a year or something. So,
if it's not in your template project, then you're probably not gonna,
I mean, actually, it is on my template because I have all my send channels going to a short sidechain track, and it's a bit weird in Ableton to create those groups with internal sends, but it's in there, but I don't use it. Anyways, question number 7 by Liam Norris.
Since its inception, drum and bass music has never been shy to utilize the latest technology and production techniques. Where do you think the future will lead us with rising computing power, artificial intelligence, and improved manufacturing of hardware?
Yeah, well, I mean, now is obviously also an interesting time for that with virtual performances and stuff like that. I think there's going to be more and more things that will be automated for the musician, which is going to, like if you take photography as an example. Like photography used to be a very, pretty exclusive club of people who had the gear and had the possibility to make certain images. Now photography is not exclusive anymore. It is still a certain percentage. And for example, something like a telelens or something like very zoomed images, you can't make those on your phone. You just can't. But for the rest, there's a lot of it's been automated. So if you want to, stand out, you have to be an exceptional photographer and you have to have really good reasons to do what you do. And I think with music, it's going to be a similar thing. Like now with EQs that are semi-AI, infused like soothe and
smart reverbs and all the stuff.
Yeah, that sort of stuff takes away some of the decision making and that
excitement.
And well, if you like working on that stuff, then you're suddenly kind of sort of out of a job, quote unquote. But it's not the most important thing. It's ultimately always going to be self-expression. And if the tools change, the self-expression is going to change too, because the tools have changed, but the goal is not going to change. And people will stand out through their self-expression, and whether that's through some really weird virtual thing where their thoughts are turned into music by all these algorithms and they don't have to produce or EQ a single thing, so to speak. Sure.
My point of view on this whole topic is also, it's always been like that. It's like, I think every method or let's say tool you have is always going to outdate, and there's always going to be something new. But the one thing that in the best case, stays alive is, of course, the actual idea, the content of the thought, the creation itself. And I think technology always going to have an impact, and it's cool and it's exciting, and I like that. But I think what's going to stay the most relevant is the idea and being authentic and being individual and outstanding. But interesting. And I've been trying some of those AI plugins, and I'm like, well, this is boring. this is. I mean, they do something, but it's like they do it within the algorithm. So I can't go in depth so much. And I sometimes like to go into depths, like do 0.3% on this one and see what's going to come out, So it steals a bit of excitement for me personally. So that's my point of view on it.
Yeah.
Last question already by Freak Noir.
Looking back, what has become important to you that was not in the beginning of your career?
Whew. I have a pretty simple short answer that back in the day, I would make songs. I was just fascinated by the tools and the music, and I would just make stuff. And if the process was interesting, I would already usually be pretty happy with the song, even if the song didn't really have a story. If I just made cool drums and cool bass, and it was just like an exciting sort of sound, then that would be enough for me. But I've noticed recently that I don't want to write tracks like that anymore. It has to have a real reason to exist, because I can make drums and bass sounds all day, and I have for many years. If there's no reason for it, it's just nothing. And I find it way more interesting and way more informative to start with a concept that you really want to explore and to show and to tell a story, because then you have way more things to, like I said, inform you along the way of what is important, what isn't important. Because also in production, if you make everything great, if I would have gotten good at making, apart from making drums and bass, I've also gotten good at writing crazy chords and then writing crazy vocals and singing them myself, and everything was fucking perfect or whatever. Yeah. It would be like, but why? What for?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a natural progression as well here. It's like your life right now is different as it was back in the days. Now you have different certain things on your table. So now you need to look at your time as well. And if you feel like, I could sit here and make drums, but that's not going to make me happy anymore because I changed and now I have just a little time. So I make use of what I built in terms of my experience and create something new that makes me happy as a person who I am right now.
Yeah. So and I still want to do that design stuff. I still want to spend ages on drums and on bass sounds, but knowing that it's for a certain story, a certain emotion,
for a reason.
So that's different. I think I was a little. I wasn't so. Well, Noisia music wasn't about nothing. It's a lot of songs definitely have their own themes, and those are the stronger songs as well. But yeah.
No, you always had an intention. Don't make that old music small at all. Like,
no,
you always
that's
had a plan,
true.
and within that moment, you loved what you were doing.
Yeah, 100%. But I guess maybe now I'm trying for it to be a little bit more personal or something.
I see.
And,
don't be too calculated about it, though.
Well, that's true. I want the music also to be intuitive, and you just learn a lot about your own process and how your creativity works. To go back to the question, what do I do differently than when I started out?
Absolutely.
Another angle, I take care of my health.
Good point.
That's definitely something that is like, it's very important. I lived very unhealthily for about 10 years and was only obsessed with making music and playing video games and whatever. Yeah. And it's amazing, but at some point you're going to realize, okay, I need to start taking care of my body.
That's not going to bring you anywhere, and it's going to fall back at one point, later or earlier anyways.
Yeah.
If I look at myself as well, certain points are pretty much the same for me. Another point which kind of stuck out when I was thinking of it, which was doing what we've been doing. I've been playing out a lot. For me, I always kind of was in this wheel where I thought this might work out until the end of the day. And what I now learned, when I look about my situation right now, it was I should have already earlier put my foot into different baskets, to be more not so dependent on one thing. Because for me, being a solo artist, of course, I mean, I run a label, of course, and I also have been doing other music on the side. But like, of course, my income was mainly touring based and it fell away. And for me, if I look back, you learn, you move on, you do things differently. But that's one thing when I look back now, I thought I could have done earlier to like put more interest and time into things which have a perspective that still is valid when a certain thing falls apart, you know? So
I guess that is smart. I'm actually pretty bad with that, but I'm also pretty happy to live in pretty shitty circumstances. if I don't have any money and I don't have any food, then I'm the kind of guy who will probably still just make what he wants to make and kind of just or that's it. Anyway, I have a kid now, so it might change. But
that's the thing. Like your baby has to have good food at least.
Of course. I mean, I work hard. I'm disciplined too. But I had a conversation about this with my dad. I was like, did you, when you had kids, did your desire to just make stuff for yourself, because that's why you do, you know, that's for you. You want to make stuff. Did your desire to make stuff and get busy with it get any less? Because for me it hasn't, and I wondered if that was weird. And he was for me it was the same. I still wanted to be creative all the time, or I still wanted to create.
That's perfect. You want to be yourself your whole life. You're not taking different roles, because especially your child wants you as who you are, and that's like where the baby gets the most out of you. Be Nick, don't be the father role people say you should be like, but you are not like that anyways. You're a cool dude.
And I no doubt about it. I'm trying to just not make decisions based on money as much as I can, you know.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Well, sounds cool. Thank you very much for taking the time, because I know your time is always very little with all the stuff you have in your lap at the moment, so I appreciate that. And for the outro of the show, I thought it's like, usually I do a sneak peek of something forthcoming which is exclusive, but for this one I thought, okay, I'll do a little different. So I had a look at the projects which weren't released and I always felt attached to, and this is one thing called Close Second. I think you like we wrote it, I think, in 3 hours or something. And I dig that out of the graveyard, and I'm just gonna play it on the show for the ending. And that was it. Thank you very much, Nick. Have a lovely day. I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
FaceTime.